Devaki and Vasudeva were confined together in the same cell by Kamsa, who cruelly believed that only after Devaki gave birth to two more children he could kill them, ensuring his survival and falsifying the prophecy of the akashvani. After witnessing the brutal murder of their 6 children, smashed to death by Kamsa's own hands, Devaki and Vasudeva were deeply shattered. The horrific scenes of their children's heads hitting the ground and walls replayed in their minds, leaving them emotionally wrecked and constantly in tears. In her anguish, Devaki expressed to Vasudeva that she could no longer endure the torment of bringing children into the world, only to witness their brutal deaths at the hands of Kamsa. The unbearable pain of seeing her offspring murdered drove her to despair, and she wished to avoid the tragedy of childbirth altogether, knowing the inevitable fate that awaited her children. But Vasudeva, though powerless to challenge Kamsa's cruelty, realized that their only hope of ending the tyrant's reign rested on the prophecy of their 8th child. With great effort, he convinced Devaki that their only salvation would come from this divine child. Not long after, Devaki found herself pregnant again. Upon hearing the news, Kamsa visited them in the dungeon, mocking his sister for conceiving even under such dreadful conditions. He warned her that this time he would waste no time before killing the child as soon as it was born. One night, in the cold, silent darkness of their dungeon, an extraordinary event unfolded that left Devaki and Vasudeva in a state of awe and disbelief. Out of nowhere, a luminous portal, shimmering with divine energy, appeared before their eyes. This was no ordinary light. It pulsated with a celestial aura, filling the damp, confined space with an otherworldly presence. From the portal emerged Yogamaya, the goddess of illusion, whose radiant form seemed to dissolve the despair that had long gripped them. Devaki and Vasudeva, who had been engulfed in grief and fear, were utterly astonished. They had never witnessed such a wondrous sight, and for a moment it felt as if the cruel dungeon had vanished, replaced by a divine realm. Their eyes widened in disbelief, hearts pounding with both trepidation and hope. This was a supernatural intervention unlike anything they had ever imagined. Yogamaya, with her ethereal grace, spoke to the couple, her voice soothing yet powerful. She explained the divine mission, that she had come to prepare the path for Lord Vishnu's incarnation, the very savior destined to rid them of Kamsa's tyranny. She revealed the sacred plan. The 7th child, still growing in Devaki's womb, had to be safely transferred to the womb of Rohini, far from Kamsa's deadly reach. Despite their fears about the complexities of such a dangerous process, Devaki and Vasudeva, with renewed hope, entrusted their fate to the will of Vishnu. Yogamaya performed the extraordinary feat of removing the embryo from Devaki's womb, ensuring the child's safety. The celestial goddess then traveled through the portal to Nanda's house, where she successfully placed the embryo into Rohini's womb, astonishing Nanda and Yashoda with the divine occurrence. Kamsa, hearing the news of Devaki's miscarriage, laughed cruelly, thinking that the child had cleverly evaded his brutal fate. Little did he know that the divine play of destiny was far beyond his grasp. Pandu, having dedicated himself to the ascetic life for many days, still found no solace in his heart. The desire for children, a yearning that refused to dissipate, gnawed at his spirit. Pandu confided in his wife, Kunthi, revealing his intention to approach the rishis and personally request that they perform the niyoga ritual and father children with her on his behalf. Kunthi was struck by his words, shocked at the suggestion. She reminded Pandu of her unwavering loyalty, stating that she could never bear the thought of being with another man, even in her mind. She reiterated her role as his lawful wife, insisting that it was his duty to father their children, and once they were born, she would follow him to the other side of the world. Pandu, with a heavy heart, explained that the practice of niyoga was not regarded as wrong, and reminded her of how the Kuru lineage had been preserved through the intervention of Krishna Dvaipoyana. He pleaded with her not to dismiss his request, sharing his inner torment, that the thought of dying without children would leave him restless even in the afterlife. Torn between her desire to remain faithful to Pandu and her reluctance to deny the one wish he had asked of her, Kunthi found herself in deep inner conflict. Vidura, after returning from his Vihara Yatra, plunged into sorrow upon hearing of Pandu's self-imposed vanavas. He was baffled by how such a thing could happen in the presence of Bhishma. How could Bhishma allow the greatest king of Hastinapura, the one who had neutralized Jarasanda's expansion across the Bharata continent through war, to retreat into the forest like a common man? Vidura could not fathom how a king who had fought alongside common soldiers on the battlefield and had risked his life for the kingdom could be sent away without protest. Pouring his sorrow before Bhishma, Vidura questioned why no one had stopped Pandu. Bhishma, though agreeing with Vidura's praise of Pandu, explained that no one could force a king to rule if his heart was unwilling. Pandu had chosen to relinquish his responsibilities, and forcing him to remain on the throne would have violated his freedom. Dhritarashtra, now basking in the kingship he had long coveted, reveled in his newfound power. His joy was heightened by the prospect that his own son would succeed him. Lost in the pleasures of life, Dhritarashtra indulged in drink and spent his nights with his 10 other wives, in addition to Gandhari. In his intoxicated state, he once mistook a maidservant, Sugata, for one of his wives and lay with her. Sugata, distressed by the incident, informed Gandhari of what had occurred. Understanding that the event happened due to Dhritarashtra's drunken state, Gandhari forgave Sugata, recognizing it as an unintentional mistake. Vidura, empathetic to Sugata's plight, realized that it was Dhritarashtra who needed Sugata's forgiveness, not the other way around. While Gandhari had already pardoned Sugata as if the fault lay with her, Vidura knew that true remorse should come from Dhritarashtra. Understanding the situation fully, Vidura humbly asked for Sugata's forgiveness on behalf of Dhritarashtra, acknowledging her suffering and treating the matter with the sensitivity it deserved. Dhritarashtra's bond with Shakuni deepened, and the two grew closer. Shakuni, ever the master of manipulation, dominated their gambling games, a pastime Dhritarashtra enjoyed with Shakuni and his charioteer, Sanjaya. Gandhari, who had been pregnant for an unusually long time, began to feel the weight of her strange condition. Though initially overjoyed by the news of her pregnancy, her happiness soon turned to sorrow as years passed without the birth of her child. The royal physicians were baffled, unable to explain the mystery of her prolonged pregnancy. The situation left Dhritarashtra frustrated, as he had expected to father 100 children, but had yet to see even one. Gandhari, once filled with hope, now spent her days in the palace's divine room, praying to Lord Shiva for deliverance. As time passed, her sorrow deepened, and she began to fear she would remain pregnant forever. Shakuni shared her grief, but his support did little to ease her pain. Bhishma, ever watchful of the Kuru dynasty's future, was deeply troubled by these unnatural events, fearing what might come of them. The burden of continuing the Kuru lineage now rested solely on the children of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. The fate of Hastinapura and the entire Kuru dynasty now hung in the balance. Rohini, upon learning of the divine intervention that had placed an embryo in her womb, was overcome with an overwhelming sense of awe and wonder. The event was beyond the realm of natural understanding, leaving her grappling with emotions of fear and uncertainty. The miraculous nature of the occurrence weighed heavily on her heart. The very thought of being with the child while her husband, Vasudeva, was in imprisonment brought a deep sense of distress. Society's judgment loomed large in her mind. Rohini was acutely aware of the whispers and potential condemnation that could follow. People questioning her pregnancy while Vasudeva remained confined, fueling rumors about her integrity and honor. Nanda comforted Rohini with his gentle wisdom. He reassured Rohini, explaining that this was no ordinary event, but part of a greater divine plan. Nanda's words were filled with reverence and insight as he reminded her that she had been handpicked by the universe for an extraordinary role, to play a vital part in bringing the divine presence of Lord Vishnu into the world. Out of the innumerable beings on earth, it was Rohini who had been chosen, not by chance but by divine will, to carry the seventh child, the one destined to play a pivotal role in a cosmic plan. Nanda's comforting words filled Rohini with a sense of profound significance, making her realize that her situation was not just a burden, but a sacred responsibility. Yet, Nanda wisely reminded Rohini that this miraculous event had to remain a closely guarded secret. If word of this divine child reached Kamsa, the consequences could be catastrophic. Kamsa, with his cruel nature, would stop at nothing to eliminate any perceived threat to his reign, especially if he learned about the child growing in Rohini's womb. With this in mind, Rohini understood that not only was she entrusted with carrying a child of immense cosmic importance, but also with the grave duty of ensuring his safety by maintaining absolute secrecy until the right moment arrived. As time flowed gently in the serene village of Gokula, Rohini's initial anxieties gradually transformed into acceptance and joy. She fully embraced her sacred role in this divine journey. As the days passed, a sense of peace and fulfillment settled within her, accepting that she was part of a grand cosmic plan. Yashoda, too, had become pregnant, and this further uplifted both women's spirits. They shared moments of happiness and anticipation, imagining the future with their children, who would one day be companions bound by destiny. When the moment finally arrived, within the modest but tranquil home of Nanda, an extraordinary birth took place, unlike any other. The child emerged, radiating strength, calmness, and an innate grace that filled the room with an otherworldly presence. Overcome by the miraculous nature of his entry into the world, Rohini chose the name Sankarshana for the child. This name held deep symbolic meaning, the one who is drawn away, or the one who pulls together, capturing the essence of his miraculous transfer from Devaki's womb to hers. In this act, the divine forces had linked both mothers, binding them in an eternal fate tied to the child. The name signified not only the physical journey of the unborn child, but also his spiritual role in bringing together forces that would eventually confront the great evils of the world. With every glance at the serene infant, Rohini was reminded of the divine mission she had been entrusted with, as both she and the child stood at the center of a cosmic plan destined to reshape the world. Thus, this extraordinary birth, where a child was miraculously conceived in the womb of one woman and then born through another, was not just a physical wonder, but a profound cosmic event. It signified the orchestration of a divine plan that transcended the bounds of human understanding.